Hey guys, welcome to Revive to Stage, Revive Stronger podcast with me, Pascal Floor, and my buddy Steve Hall, who's back from the dead. And
Literally.
like literally, yeah. And it's good to have you back, not just here on the podcast, but also in terms of actually talking with you. Because guys, we mentioned it in the past. Steve and I are always communicating on a daily basis, like sending voice messages to each other over WhatsApp. And I haven't really heard from Steve in quite a while. And if I did, it was more like, zombie mode, I can't talk, everything is just fucked up. And he took ages to actually come out with a proper sentence and stuff like that. So it's awesome to have you back, Steve. Back from the dead. And I don't know. Do you want to start with the last week, how everything went, what you've been through, so that the people can actually understand what I'm talking about? Because I know that last week when we started the last podcast episode, you were talking about how everything is really good, your strategy, and that you're excited.
Yeah. So, like Pascal says, I feel like I have been reborn. I have revived stronger after just one day of 750 grams of carbs. Was pretty nice.
Ooh, yes.
Never done that in my life before, so that was quite a nice experience to eat all that. It was actually easy as fuck.
You're hot, right?
Sorry?
And you're hot.
Yeah.
I mean, like temperature-wise.
Oh, boiling. I'm pumped all the time. It was quite nice. But yeah, as Pascal was saying, I basically, as we've found throughout this time that I've been doing my contest prep, it's been like everything's been very well planned. Everything's gone pretty smoothly. Nothing's been terribly hard. Last time when we checked in, things were getting a bit tougher, but nothing like unsustainable. There was nothing that I couldn't deal with, and it was all very manageable. And I still felt, being 3 weeks out at the time, I felt in a really strong position, and really good. It was, I think, my second day of depletion when me and Pascal checked in, and I felt okay. And depletion was continuing until Friday. So yesterday was my first kind of carb update. And I won't go too in depth over the depletion protocol because we already did that last time. Basically, I was increasing water intake, increasing sodium intake at the start of the week, and then it came down to now at a normal level. And carbohydrates were coming from my low dieting levels down to pretty much as little as I could manage to take in. If people know depletion protocols like peaking, most of them last like 3 days, maybe 4 days. Mine was 7 days, and it was all pretty hard training, as you guys know. And I guess the long and short of it is to make it sound so people really understand what I went through. I wouldn't be able to give this to a client, this protocol, and I'm glad I've done it and haven't tried giving it to a client yet. And I'm glad me and Pascal have had this experience. Couldn't give it to someone to do. I wouldn't wish it really upon my worst enemy. It was quite a horrific experience, if I'm quite honest. Every single day got worse and worse. Every single evening, I was questioning whether I'd be able to survive and actually push for another day. And it was kind of like, if I didn't have a shitload of structure in my day, I wouldn't get through it. So my days, if I take you through just like a day, I basically get up, go for do my usual routine, go for a walk and everything like this. Caffeine the hell up for client updates so I could actually give my clients the service they deserve. And gave them their video response. And then after that, I was pretty much wiped out for the entire day. I didn't really have any energy to give. So I'd go to the gym. And fortunately, I have a local client, my only local client, Damien, who helped me through my sessions and literally helped me through them. If he wasn't going to be at the gym, I'm not sure I would have. I would have gone, but it was hard. Like walking to the gym was hard, let alone going into the gym and doing things. Then after that gym workout, I basically was done for the day. I kind of crashed out the last 2 days, I think, or 3 days. I think I crashed out and ended up sleeping for an hour after the gym because I just couldn't do anything. And then it was basically waiting out until my PM session, which again was horrific. Just going to the gym and doing cardio and just isolation work was just mentally so challenging. So for the week, I was probably, and I was just saying to Pascal, within probably on average a 50% calorie deficit. So I was consuming under 1,500 calories, and my step count was over 15,000. My cardio was over 1,000 calories of LIS, and weight training twice per day. So just the absolute pressure of that week of depletion broke me down, and I wouldn't have been able to work a 9-to-5 job. This is why we wouldn't be able to give it to a client. I'm not sure many people would have been able to actually stick it out. And I don't want to sound like I'm kind of tougher or harder than anyone else, but I'm not soft. And I wouldn't have kind of felt like I was going to break. And I don't like showing vulnerability particularly. And on the Thursday of depletion, so the second to last day, I actually emailed Broderick and Jared saying basically I don't think I can't do another day of it, because on Thursday evening I got home. I was saying to Pascal, I felt nauseous, majorly lightheaded. Like I get lightheaded, it's normal in prep. You have lower blood pressure and things like this. But I felt nauseous. I actually felt kind of confused. And a bit kind of like, my brain just didn't feel in a healthy way. It was worse than just brain fog. So I got home and I sat down kind of in the chair just over here, put my head on the table. Charlotte was in, and I couldn't face a conversation with her. I couldn't answer her questions. I could hear her. It was just like, I just didn't have the energy or will to do anything more than that. So I emailed Broderick and Jared and actually messaged Mike Israetel. And Mike managed to calm me down a bit. He basically said, the thing that stuck out to me that made me feel better, I said this to Pascal as well at the time, natural bodybuilders don't die. I think I said that to you, Pascal, that's what he came back to me with. He was like, bodybuilders die, natural bodybuilders don't die. You're not going to die, and I know I wasn't going to die, but I very much felt like I was risking my health. I really, really did. And it was not healthy what I did. So he was just like, he talked me down a little bit. And then Jared came back and said, next 2 days, take rest days and up your carbs by 50 grams. But I was like, right, it's the final day. If I need a few more carbs or having a few more carbs, I'll take it a bit lighter. So I managed to get through the final day of depletion with under 50 grams of net carbs. Because I couldn't do it without the fiber. I needed my cauliflower and mushrooms and spinach. Managed to get through. And yesterday was carb up day. And I felt like an absolute wreck all day, but it was a really nice day because I could actually eat. I felt like my body was replenishing, my body transformed almost within that day. And today I feel like a new man, in terms of like brain function particularly and energy levels. I actually feel happy again. Whereas if I couldn't face doing another day of depletion. I was saying to Pascal, it actually felt like depression. It felt like each day I was like, I don't want to live for another day like this. Like, honestly, it was really, really fucking hard. I've been through some hard times. I had a head injury this is where Revive Stronger comes from, like my head injury and recovering from that. And I've been through some very hard times at which I was at risk of actually having a seizure and dying at times. And this was, from memory, as hard, if not actually harder, because it was forced. Like, that was like me fighting something. This is me putting starvation on myself. That made it much harder. That long and short of it, that was what it was. I should also include my sleep was really disrupted through the entire week. It was terrible. I was waking up 5-6 times in the night, either to pee because I was obviously water loading somewhat, and also just because the body was not happy. And actually the final night of depletion for the next day, I remember putting on my Instagram story, I was like, I feel like it's Christmas tomorrow, because it was like all the carbs. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I don't feel like that partly why I was probably wrecked yesterday, because was so tired. But yeah, that was the long and short of how that week went. And I have to, like I have already, apologized to Pascal from my end that I couldn't communicate. It got to the point where Pascal was offering support and I couldn't take it. It was that I was that tired that I couldn't even respond to messages. I just couldn't, I didn't have the mental kind of state or willpower. Like even answering some emails was like hard. So that's yeah. And I guess from Pascal's end, yeah, it was hard for you as well.
Totally. I will get to that in just a second. I just wanted to make sure that the people actually heard what you were saying, that it wasn't just only complaining about a little bit of inconvenience or something, but I know you, I know how much of a robot you are and how much you can commit and stick to a plan. I mean, just the best example is your last contest prep. Like where you were really suffering hard over the amount of a couple of weeks, and you were still able to push through it, step on stage. And you said it yourself that this contest prep was really not good at all, like in terms of structuring, in terms of sticking to everything, and it wasn't easy at all. And I know, again, how robotic you are and how much willpower you have, especially when it comes to bodybuilding and sticking to a plan that you hardly ever pull out. When I read the email to Broderick and Jared, in which I was a BCC, I was just like, wow, okay, this must be really, really, well, Steve must be at a point where it's really kind of close to, I don't know, falling off the edge or something.
I was a breaking point.
Yeah, I mean, we were still in contact over the whole period, but even though the frequency and the length of our messages weren't that high, we were still talking with each other. And sure, I heard it in your voice, I heard it in your behavior and all that kind of stuff, that it's not the easiest thing, but words can only tell you that much. I didn't really see you or anything, couldn't really see your body language, which also brings me to the point of when you're a coach and you are doing your check-ins with your clients, this is where video check-ins are so important, because everything on paper could look perfect. And also the voice itself could sound like she's still in a good position. But taking a look at the face then and the body language, how they're moving, will tell you a whole different story. And I was actually really surprised when I read the email, and for me it was just a sign of, okay, this is really then that you are close to breaking apart, actually. And try to cheer you up, try to talk some sense in you. And for me, the whole experience was kind of special as well, because we've talked about it and I heard it from a lot of people, but I never had someone in my environment who's so close to me, like on an emotional level and personal level, who was actually stepping on stage and competing. I know a lot of people who competed, not just in powerlifting, but also in bodybuilding, stepping on stage. But the thing is that all those people were still kind of in a distance. Even when those people are some clients, there's still some kind of barrier between. You only see them in that given moment, and you only hear them in that given moment. But when you open up to someone else, and you are so close to someone else like Steve and I are, Steve is my best mate. Now it's official.
Bromance.
Yeah, bromance. And you talk with each other on a daily basis, and you see that change, which also came out of a sudden. It was from one day to the next that it went downhill. Then the changes are even more severe and obvious to you. right? And for me personally, I had a really hard time because I was sitting here in Germany in Berlin, and I couldn't be there for you, which made it hard. And I wanted to give you all the support I could, but I was also, on the other hand, like insecure about how much I can actually talk to you, because I knew that everything was a little bit overwhelming for you, and also that things I said or could have said could be interpreted in a absolute negative and wrong way simply because of the state you were in. And this just showed me how much of an impact a contest prep can have on your environment, which I couldn't really so much relate to. Sure, I heard stories. Sure, I've seen some people where the contest prep impacted their life. But I was never so close to that person that I really got the idea of it, and I could feel it myself. Like, it's something completely else to be that spectator who's only looking from the outside. And it's easy to judge then and stay objective. But when the emotional aspect comes into play as well, and you really can feel the impact of someone else's contest prep on yourself, this just gives you a good understanding of how it might be for people who are outside of the sport of bodybuilding, who have no idea about why you're actually competing, what you're going through, and all that kind of stuff. For those people, it must be so much weirder and harder to understand it and go through phases like these. I don't know where I should end this now, because it was a good experience for me as well, so that I could perhaps prepare my athletes and myself as well to deal with situations like these, how to cope with it in terms of their environment, how to involve the people in it, and perhaps even find some strategies so that the environment doesn't really feel that much of the impact itself.
I think the protocol, I think, is not a bad one on paper. I think and it's nothing Broderick's ever actually tried on a natural before, I don't think. I don't know of anyone who's tried such an extended depletion period before for such a person. So you have to take into account I'm like 5% body fat. I've been dieting for a period of time, and my energy output's huge and my energy expenditure is huge. So it was a very extreme thing for me to have done. And yeah, like, things on paper can look like they work magic and they can be amazing, but in practice, that's another thing. And this is why I had to go through it myself before we ever considered giving this to any clients, because I couldn't, if a client felt the way I felt and I kind of had put them through that, and they not kind of, I don't know, maybe have the understanding that that was normal or something along those lines, I'd feel like I'd done them, like, I almost feel like I couldn't, it's not worth going through it. This is what I was saying. And this is what finally was the nail in the coffin for the Thursday evening email that I sent on the final day, where I basically broke down. I was like, it's actually just not worth it. Like, I'm a amateur natural bodybuilder. Even if this is going to give me a 1% increase in look on stage, it's not worth how bad I was feeling, because like you said, I was absolutely fine, and then day to day it was like 50% more of me went. Every task I remember saying to you, like, everything was taking me 25% more time, like, each day. I even like looking at my watch, because I do the walk in the morning every day, literally like 20% more time was being added every time I was doing a client update. I'd get to the gym like half an hour later the next day, because everything was taking more time. And like, for people who don't know what the video updates are like, it's basically a 5 to 10 minute video just talking into a phone. And before each one, I would literally have to sit down on a stool, kind of close my eyes, prepare myself, stand up, read my notes, and then do their update. And I can remember during the updates, trying to talk quick and like get it over and done with a bit quicker, which is bad, I know, and I apologize for that. But part of that was I was actually kind of like losing focus, and I remember feeling lightheaded during just speaking and just interacting on a level like that. That's how bad it got, guys. Like I would not have been able to do a normal office job or be a PT. And most people who do bodybuilding, it's a side hobby. It's something we do on the side. It's not our life. So unless this was, assuming this is going to have a superior outcome, which we don't know yet, but assuming it will, which is exciting, the only people I'd ever consider using such an approach, which is maybe a percent different, if that, is someone who was like professional, had their life very much under control, things like this, because I am in a very kind of lucky position in that I'm self-employed. I don't have a kind of family to look after. I just have to, all I had to do was look after myself that week and get to the gym and do my client updates. I'd set, like I had Pascal by my side to help me with business things. We had the podcast set up. It was all very much engineered so that I could almost have a holiday. And that's effectively almost what it ended up being, but a very hard, horrible holiday. So this is what we're saying, guys. Like, it's, as a coach, it's your responsibility to try out new protocols before you ever give them to a client, especially when they're to this extreme. And then once you've kind of done them, or like you assess the risk to reward ratio, and I can already tell you the rewards will not weigh out the potential risks to someone's well-being and life going through a week like that. It was, super duper hard. I don't know what else to say, and maybe I can go over some of like, if you've got anything else.
Yeah, I think because you had some really important notes in there.
Cool.
And this is the risk reward thing that we've talked about it last week already, where we discussed the different peaking protocols and different strategies.
Yeah.
Is it really worth to put yourself through such a struggle only for the 1% difference, if at all? And it could be that it stresses you out that much that actually it's not 1% difference, but that you are mitigating the difference between it because it stresses you out that much. And I mean, you also pointed out that you are still an amateur. You are doing it as a hobby. You're not earning your money with it. I mean, not with stepping on stage,
not directly.
Yeah.
My biceps.
And is it really that important then to try to get that 1% for that amount of suffering or
you'd get
inconvenience?
Fired.
Yeah, I mean,
you wouldn't be able to go to work.
Yeah, I mentioned it that we were still in contact, and there were some voice messages where the speed of your voice and the speed of the sentences would just decrease massively, and I could hear it at the other end, that you had a hard time actually building proper sentences because your brain didn't work properly.
Yeah.
It took you sometimes ages to come up with a word, and it's not like highly super intellectual words, but more so just a normal word, which should be there, but you were just lost. And another thing I just wanted to point out, it was really interesting for us to see how that peaking protocol actually still is running and what the results are. And it seems like it's done a fantastic job. But on the other hand, I can't see clients do that. I mean, not all of them. Of course, there will always be exceptions. As you pointed out, people who are perhaps pros, people who have that fucking steel heart mentality, all or nothing approach, and most of the time I have the feeling that those are the people who were on a pretty high level in their youth when it comes to sports, where it was building up that mental strength throughout all the competitive years in the past. But with having a family, with having a regular job, I don't see people being able to pull something off like that. Seriously not.
Not unless they can go to sleep after coming in for half a day of work.
But I mean, you had it yourself. You went to bed a couple of times throughout that peaking protocol because you needed to have a nap in the middle of the day.
It wasn't even like I wanted to. It was more I was like I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't even watch TV. Actually, this is really interesting. This just reminded me. I remember when I was recovering from my head injury in hospital, there was a period of time where what I really wanted to do, because it was during Easter and I had exams coming up for university, I wanted to revise. I got my mum to bring in my revision notes. I couldn't look at them. I remember physically being there and like I could be awake, but I couldn't read. I couldn't look at them. And there became a point, my friend brought Pokemon to play on my Game Boy. Couldn't do it. I couldn't concentrate on these menial tasks. I eventually got to a point where I could watch TV and all I did was watch Pokemon. No joke. That's all my brain had the capacity to do. This is how I felt. I was like, I can't actually do work. I can't read emails. I can't even listen to podcasts. All I can do is go to sleep. There's no point me just sitting here doing nothing. I'm better off just going to sleep and wasting some of the day away, time that I'm not like being hungry and wanting to eat. And we haven't even touched on hunger, which is super interesting because I was on virtually hardly any food.
Oh, yeah.
But the hunger didn't really care. Like it was the energy. I had none. Just absolutely none.
You said you made a funny analogy, or not really an analogy, but more so comparison to a diet, which is the protein modified sparing fast from Lyle McDonald.
Yeah.
Like being 0 carbs.
Rapid fat loss. Yeah.
Yeah, rapid fat loss, exactly. Like really low calories, but with keeping in mind that you're already stage lean. And you are getting in way more training volume than it is prescribed there in that protocol, right?
Yeah. In that protocol, I think he says, it's depending on your level of leanness. He doesn't recommend it for anyone who is as lean as I am. I think it was like 2 full body training sessions and then a refeed at the end of the week. And only like low intensity, steady state cardio, if any. And I was doing all of that, but higher volume training and getting in shitloads of steps as well. And actually, if we just go over, I thought it would be interesting for the listeners to hear how my body weight changed. Mm-hmm. So my average from before doing any of the water loading or any of the depletion was 167.2. And my lowest weigh-in at the end of depletion was 161. So I effectively lost 6 pounds just through a week. So I was losing a pound a day basically. And I woke up, sorry, I was just going to say, I added 3.5 pounds overnight with my first carb up, which is nice.
Which is really also cool and interesting for the people to see how much carbohydrates actually have an impact on your scale weight.
And I was already depleted. I was already on low carbs.
Totally.
My body weight. But so I would have lost a lot of fat during that week as well. Well, I say a lot. I would have lost a lot of fat in that week as well.
So moving forward from now, for this week, what is your plan?
So far, we have had a 750 there or thereabouts carb up day, in which I'm keeping fats kind of moderate to low. Broderick wasn't concerned about fat intake. He was like, whatever it goes to. He's not concerned about me putting on fat in a week. So I'm letting it go to like 50 or above slightly. I don't think I can keep it below 50 without really probably not enjoying my food so much. Protein will come up to like 200 just so I get enough quality protein. It's coming down each day by about 100 calories, like 25 grams of carbs, so that the day before show, it's back to my old dieting intake. So I'll probably be, my calories, so people know, it's like just over 4,000, and then it comes to just under 4,000, 3,500, 3,000, 2,700, and then 2 days out is probably where it gets into possibly being a calorie deficit, where it goes to 2,400 and then 2,200 and then show day. So yeah, tapering carbs, and then sodium staying high throughout the week. Obviously don't want to drop that. And then water is staying kind of normal to potentially tapering it down a little bit. This is a bit like a dry carb up, if people have heard of that approach, where you basically, you don't get rid of water, because obviously you want to, like, water follows where carbohydrates go, and you want to store that. But the water tapering down a little bit is following with my carbohydrates tapering down a little bit. But that might be adjusted. Jared and Broderick want photos each morning. So what I'm doing is videoing myself every morning and then taking some screenshots and sending those across to them, which I'll probably send, well, I'll certainly have for yourself as well, so you can look over that. And yeah, we'll just have to see how the week goes. So far, like, just some of my notes. Let's see what I wrote down yesterday for my notes. So I wrote down instantly seeing legs pop, hardening, carb comas after meals are real, / it might be the poor sleep from last night, getting muscle spasms, which were cool, extremely vascular all the time, feeling everything like popping, and legs filled out massively. And it was actually, when you talk about, you see it on some people's physiques where they look kind of like grainy, that was happening. That's to the degree of, like, I think to look grainy, you have to be either a very mature bodybuilder to get that look, or you need to be holding on to very little water. So I think, I'm hoping by the end of this week, we'll get to a sweet spot where I will be kind of looking a little bit grainy, which is exciting. And I sent Pascal a rear glute picture, which wasn't very, I couldn't really show him exactly to the extent that it was in my eyes, but
basically it was really gay.
It was pretty gay.
He pulled, all he did was pulling down his pants, holding his glute into the mirror and taking an image of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean,
it didn't leave much to the imagination. But I was just excited to see rear glutes coming.
Well, people can probably relate when they are into bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff. But I deleted that image immediately off my phone again, because I don't want to get into this situation where by accident someone is scrolling through my photos and there's some guy who sent me an image of his shredded glutes. Oh, man.
It's all right. It's in our WhatsApp conversation, so I've got it saved there.
Good that I'm single. Would only cause problems with a girlfriend. What is that? Anyway, yeah, go ahead, please.
I don't think I have anything else to say. So, another relaxing day. Oh, training. I should probably touch on training, cardio, what that's all doing for next week. So basically minimal training, just whatever I need to stay sane, and same with cardio. So because I am a robot and I need structure, I've basically told myself to do half cardio, my typical deload week training, and posing. Instead of my PM sessions, I'll do practice a lot of posing. Nothing heavy, but just like, because I was so tired last week, I didn't practice my posing routine at all. And I didn't do much, just standard posing anyway. So I'll go through my normal rounds and I'll practice my routine a couple of times. So I should have that pretty much nailed for show day. So yeah, really, really excited about everything. Oh, and steps are being halved as well, pretty much. So I'll just let them hit whatever they naturally would hit without me going for like excessive walks. Because what you don't want to do is carb up and then use all these carbohydrates, and that would be the worst thing. And this is where I guess part of the checking in is important, because we'll be able to see what rate does my body burn the carbs off, in terms of like how much does my NEAT raise, how much does just my heat raise in general, like body temperature and stuff like that. Because I have a feeling I'll burn through them quite quickly. I just feel like that's the type of, just from knowing me and my body, I think that's the type of person I am. I kind of really ramp up when I get fed. At least it feels like I am already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. I think when you don't have anything else to talk about, could wrap it up here.
We're at 35 minutes, so
totally. I want to leave the listeners with some kind of some kind of lesson. I think in terms of the peak week protocol, peak week strategies, I think as long as you're not a pro, as long as you're not earning your money with the sport of bodybuilding, I don't think that you need to take extreme approaches to peak week, that you're better off to take a conservative approach, whatever allows your mentality to stay sane, to keep on track, and to actually get on stage peeled and shredded.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think the only difference that you could see, I'd say the approach I've taken is extremely similar to a traditional front load. And the difference is when you go into a front load, you're just doing your normal diet and you don't go through an aggressive depletion. So you're not super depleted, and then you don't go as aggressive with your loading. So mine's just in a more aggressive front load. And why would you do a more aggressive approach? Because the more you empty the bucket, the more potential you have to refill the bucket. I can actually super compensate. So I should look that tiny bit better. Otherwise, is it worth that little tiny bit better? For most people, no. So yeah, I think that's a good moral of the story.
Totally. Cool. Then, guys, as always, I'm throwing out some plugs now. Okay, not really plugs. I would appreciate it, or we would appreciate it, if you leave a comment below in the YouTube section, leave a review over at iTunes, put a thumbs up at YouTube again, subscribe to the channel. We are putting out fantastic podcasts recently, or not just recently, since a longer time already, but they are getting better and better, I have the feeling. That host, yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing. No, and there will be some amazing guests coming onto our show in the future that I can assure you. And other than that, I mean,
I just want to say thank you, everyone. I had some people message me almost every day during my depletion week. Your comments were not they didn't go amiss. If I seemed off, if I seemed angry, if I seemed just not myself, you now know why. So I want to thank everyone for your support. I want to continue to thank people for supporting me, Pascal, the podcast, Revive Stronger. I'm now less than a week out from show, so stay in tune with my Instagram because that's where I'm documenting a lot of it. I'm going to do some vlogging as well, just so that we've got some content for the YouTube channel as well. And I just want to also say, in terms of the podcast, we are working incredibly hard, and I want to say how much Pascal does behind the scenes that you guys might not appreciate, in terms of we try and have a high quality podcast, not just with guests, not just with organization and keeping them coming out, but there's so much high competition now, we have to make them high quality, and Pascal makes our podcast stand out in terms of audio quality. So if you are looking for a high quality podcast, listen to ours, because Pascal works his butt off to get that for you guys. So just appreciate that as well. And he covers all the YouTube comments as well, whereas I'm all over Instagram. So we do appreciate every comment, every kind word that you put down here. It does not go amiss. So thank you guys so much. And yeah, thank you, Pascal.
Totally. So on that note, perfect.
Cheers, guys. Catch you soon. Cheers.